The massive trading vessel Star Wanderer drifted gracefully through the star-filled void, its sleek hull reflecting the distant starlight. Captain James Miller stood at the bridge's observation window, watching as his ship approached the bustling spaceport of New Alexandria, one of the Galactic Commonwealth's busiest trading hubs. 50 years had passed since humanity had joined the Commonwealth, and in that time, they had earned a reputation as excellent traders and mediators. The irony wasn't lost on Miller as he watched a massive Tauran battlecruiser pass by his vessel, its crew probably looking down at his fragile human-made ship with their usual mixture of pity and amusement. "Captain," called out First Officer Robert Drake from his station, "the Port Authority has granted us permission to dock. They seem particularly excited about our cargo of Earth coffee beans." A slight smile crossed Drake's weathered face. Amazing how something so simple brings us so much profit. Miller nodded, straightening his simple blue uniform. At 6 feet tall, he was considered tiny by most Commonwealth species standards. Even the youngest Tauran child stood 8 feet tall. The mighty Krell warriors reached 12 feet, their armored bodies capable of withstanding direct energy weapon hits. Humans, they often said in the spaceport bars, are such delicate creatures. As the Star Wanderer glided into its assigned dock, Miller observed the usual crowd of alien merchants gathering at the viewing galleries. They had come to watch the humans demonstrate their famous gentle touch in docking procedures. No other species could match humanity's precision in delicate operations. "Docking complete, Captain," reported Drake. "Another perfect landing." The ship's internal communicator crackled. "Bridge, this is Cargo Master Thompson. You might want to come down here, sir. We got a situation with our Krell clients." Miller sighed. The Krell were notorious for their aggressive negotiating tactics. "On my way," he replied, stepping into the transport tube. In the cargo bay, 2 massive Krell warriors towered over Thompson, their scaled armor gleaming under the bay lights. Their leader, a scared veteran named Grok, rumbled in their characteristic deep voice. "The price we agreed upon was too high," Grok declared. "We demand a 40% reduction." Miller, walking up to them, didn't even flinch at their intimidating presence. "Honored Grok," he said calmly, "we signed a contract. The Commonwealth Trading Commission would not look kindly on any violations." Grok's assistant stepped forward menacingly. "And what will you do, little human? Report us." "Actually," Miller replied, pulling out his datapad, "I took the liberty of contacting your clan's honor master before coming down. He's quite interested in hearing about this situation." The change in the Krell's demeanor was immediate. Their species lived and died by their honor code, and the mere mention of their honor master made them step back. "Perhaps," Grok said carefully, "we should review the original agreement." An hour later, as Miller watched the Krell depart with their cargo, at the original price, Drake joined him in the observation lounge. "You know," Drake said, sipping his coffee, "sometimes I wonder if they realize how easily we outsmart them. They're all so focused on physical strength, they never see the real power of humanity." Miller watched as a news alert flashed across the lounge's information screen. Reports were coming in about strange signals from the outer rim of Commonwealth space, something about ancient beacons activating after millennia of silence. "Maybe it's better they don't understand us, Robert," Miller replied, a strange feeling of unease settling in his gut. "Sometimes I wonder if we even understand ourselves." Outside the window, the massive form of a Commonwealth Defense Fleet warship moved past, its crews probably laughing at the small human vessel beside it. None of them noticed how the human crew tracked every weakness in their defensive formations, every flaw in their ship design. None of them realized that behind every polite smile and peaceful gesture, humanity's true nature lay dormant, waiting. The ancient beacons continuing to pulse their warning into space, unheeded by all except for something deep in human DNA, something starting to stir from a millennia-long slumber. 3 days after leaving New Alexandria, the Star Wanderer's peaceful routine shattered with a single emergency transmission. Miller stood frozen at his command station, watching the grainy footage from the colony world of Haven's Gate. They came from nowhere. The colonial governor's voice shook as smoke filled the background. Thousands of ships, like a swarm off. The transmission cut off in static. "Status report," Miller ordered, his voice steady despite the chaos unfolding on the main screen. "Commonwealth Defense Fleet is engaging the unknown hostiles," Drake reported, his fingers dancing across the control panel. "But, sir, they're losing. Badly." The bridge crew watched in horror as massive organic-looking ships tore through the most powerful warships in the Commonwealth fleet like they were made of paper. The Krell dreadnoughts, famous for their impenetrable defenses, exploded one after another. "Captain," the ship's AI announced, "we're receiving distress calls from civilian vessels in the sector. Nearest ship is carrying 300 refugees." Miller didn't hesitate. "Plot an intercept course." "Sir," Drake protested, "we're a trading vessel. We're not armed for." "We're the only hope those people have," Miller cut him off. "Execute the order." The Star Wanderer changed course, its engines pushing to maximum speed. As they approached the refugee ship, they got their first close look at the enemy. The hostile vessels resembled giant insects, their hulls made of some sort of biological material. "5 enemy ships on intercept course," reported Thompson from the tactical station. "They've spotted us." Miller felt something strange stirring in his mind, like an old memory trying to surface. Combat strategies he'd never learned began flowing through his thoughts. "Divert all power to forward shields," he ordered, "and release our cargo containers." "The cargo?" Drake asked, confused. "Sir, that's worth." "Do it." The massive cargo containers, each the size of a small building, detached from the Star Wanderer's hull and drifted into space. The enemy ships approached, their weapons charging. "Now," Miller commanded, "detonate the emergency thrusters on those containers." The cargo containers exploded outward, creating a cloud of debris and interference that confused the enemy ship's sensors. In that moment of chaos, Miller executed a maneuver that should have been impossible for a ship of their size. The Star Wanderer spun on its axis, using the debris field as cover, and slipped past the enemy formation. They reached the refugee ship just as its engines failed. "Emergency docking procedures," Miller ordered. "We have 3 minutes before they regroup." The crew moved with unprecedented coordination, as if they'd trained for this moment their entire lives. The refugees were brought aboard in record time, many staring in amazement at how calm the human crew remained under fire. "Enemy ships regrouping," Thompson announced. "They're charging weapons." Miller felt that strange sensation again, stronger now. His mind rapidly calculated vectors and possibilities that he shouldn't have understood. "Plot a course directly into that gas giant's atmosphere," he ordered, pointing to the massive planet nearby. "Sir, that's suicide," Drake protested, but his hands were already executing the command. The Star Wanderer plunged into the gas giant's upper atmosphere, its hull groaning under the pressure. The enemy ships followed, their biological hulls less equipped to handle the strain. "Deeper," Miller commanded, his eyes showing an unusual golden glint. "Just a little deeper." One by one, the enemy ships began to break apart under the atmospheric pressure. The Star Wanderer's reinforced trading hull, designed to withstand the pressures of massive cargo loads, held together just long enough. When they emerged on the other side of the gas giant, they were alone. In the aftermath, as they headed for the nearest safe port, Drake approached his captain. "How did you know that would work?" he asked quietly. Miller stared at his reflection in the viewport, noticing for the first time that his eyes had changed color. "I didn't know," he answered honestly. "I just remembered." Across human space, similar reports began flooding in. Trading vessels outmaneuvering warships, civilian crews displaying impossible tactical knowledge, human eyes turning golden in the heat of battle. The dormant gods of war were beginning to wake up. The emergency meeting of the Commonwealth Council looked more like a panic room then a dignified gathering. Representatives from 30 alien species argued loudly while watching footage of the swarm's destruction. In the center of the chaos stood Admiral Thomas Ward, Earth's military representative, his golden eyes matching those of every human in the room. "The swarm has destroyed 12 colony worlds," a Krell warrior announced, his massive form trembling with rage. "Our strongest ships fall before them." Yet, he turned to look at Admiral Ward. "Reports say human civilian vessels are surviving encounters." The room fell silent. All eyes turned to the humans present. Meanwhile, aboard the Star Wanderer, Miller sat in the medical bay as Dr. Wells ran another scan. The doctor's own eyes had turned golden 3 days ago. "Fascinating," she muttered, studying the results. "Your DNA is changing." "No, not changing. Unlocking." Miller watched the medical display, seeing strands of his DNA glowing with previously dormant sections now bright and active. "What's happening to us, Doctor?" Before she could answer, First Officer Drake burst into the medical bay. "Captain, you need to see this. They found something in the ancient archives on Mars." The ship's main viewing screen showed a live feed from Mars. Archaeological teams had discovered a massive underground facility, untouched for thousands of years. But what caught everyone's attention was the writing on the walls. "We can read it," Drake said in disbelief. "Somehow, we can all read it." The ancient text told a story that sent shockwaves through the Commonwealth. Humanity wasn't just another species that evolved on Earth. They were the last remnants of an ancient warrior race, the ones who had fought the swarm in a war that nearly destroyed the galaxy. Back in the council chamber, an ancient AI core recovered from Mars played its message. Protocol 7249. Prison world status. Earth. The warrior species known as humans have been successfully contained. Genetic locks are in place, suppressing their combat abilities and natural weapons. The species will be allowed to rebuild under these restrictions, developing a peaceful civilization. The alien representatives watched in stunned silence as the message continued. "Warning: genetic locks designed to deactivate only if the swarm returns. In such an event, the warrior species will be needed again." In the medical bay, Dr. Wells finally understood her readings. "Our bodies aren't changing," she explained to Miller and Drake. "They're remembering. The strength, the tactical knowledge, the golden eyes. This is what we used to be." Miller felt it now, memories that weren't his but somehow were. Combat techniques passed down through DNA, strategic knowledge coded into genes. The strength that made humans infamous across the ancient galaxy. "The question is," Drake said quietly, "why were we locked away? How dangerous were we?" Their discussion was interrupted by an alert. The swarm had attacked another world, but this time, something was different. The human defenders had fought back with impossible skill. Dock workers had turned into expert gunners. Farmers had become tactical geniuses. Every human on the colony had transformed into a warrior. Admiral Ward addressed the Commonwealth Council. "For 50 years, you've seen us as gentle traders and diplomats. You mocked our physical weakness, never knowing that we were designed to be that way. To protect you. From us." A Tauran counselor stood up. "Are you saying humans were imprisoned on Earth because you were too dangerous to leave free?" "No," Ward corrected, his golden eyes glowing brighter. "We were imprisoned because we were the only ones willing to do what was necessary to stop the swarm. And now, we're remembering why." Across human space, millions of people felt the change. Knowledge of advanced combat techniques flooded their minds. Bodies became stronger, reflexes sharper. The genetic locks were failing faster now, releasing thousands of years of suppressed power. On the Star Wanderer, Miller looked at his crew, all of them now golden-eyed and standing straighter, moving with deadly grace they'd never known they possessed. "Doctor," he asked, "what percentage of our abilities have been unlocked?" Dr. Wells checked her readings and went pale. "Captain, we're only at 15%, and the process is accelerating." The gods of war were not just awakening. They were rising. 1 week after the Mars revelation, the Star Wanderer looked nothing like a trading vessel anymore. Its crew had instinctively modified the ship, turning cargo bays into weapon platforms and reinforcing the hull with techniques they somehow remembered from their ancient past. Miller stood on the bridge, now wearing combat armor that his crew had built from memory. The formerly simple trading captain moved with the fluid grace of a predator. Dr. Wells' latest scans showed they had reached 40% of their full awakening. Contact, Drake called out. Swarm ships emerging from hyperspace. 500 vessels bearing straight for the Preston colony. Miller didn't need to think. The knowledge flowed naturally now. All hands, battle positions. Show them what we've become. The Star Wanderer wasn't alone. 20 other human ships, mostly converted civilian vessels, formed up in a formation that hadn't been seen in the galaxy for thousands of years. Sir, Thompson reported from his new tactical station, I'm getting strange readings from all crew members. Our brain patterns are synchronizing. Miller felt it. Every human in the fleet was connecting, sharing combat knowledge, moving as one mind. Their golden eyes glowed brighter, and time seemed to slow down. Battle state achieved, Miller announced, his voice deeper than normal. All ships, execute Pattern 7. The human fleet moved in ways that defied normal space combat logic. Ships twisted through impossible angles, their crews instinctively knowing how to bypass the normal laws of physics. The swarm, expecting easy prey, met instead a force from their ancient nightmares. In the Preston colony below, the changes were even more dramatic. Ordinary civilians found themselves moving with perfect coordination. Farmers picked up makeshift weapons and fought with the skill of elite special forces. Children were safely evacuated in operations that seemed rehearsed for years. Admiral Ward, watching from the Commonwealth Command Center, explained to the stunned alien leaders, "This is why we were locked away. Humans don't just fight. We evolve during combat. Each battle makes us stronger, faster, smarter." The evidence was clear on their screens. The Star Wanderer, once a simple trading vessel, now moved like a deadly predator. Its newly created weapons fired with impossible accuracy, each shot finding weak points in the swarm ships that no one else had even noticed. Enemy ships attempting to land. Drake reported calmly, his movements precise and efficient. "They've never seen our ground combat capabilities, sir. Should we show them?" Miller smiled, an expression that would have terrified any being that evolved as a prey species. Launch the drop pods. The drop pods, built from converted cargo containers, streaked through the atmosphere. Inside each one, human warriors waited, their bodies humming with power that hadn't been seen since ancient times. They hit the ground running, moving with speed that made even Krell warriors step back in shock. Dr. Wells, monitoring from the medical bay, reported across the fleet. Awakening process accelerating under combat conditions. Combat efficiency increasing by 12% every minute. New abilities manifesting. She was right. Humans on the ground discovered they could communicate without words, coordinate without signals. Their strength grew until they could tear through swarm armor with their bare hands. Their speed increased until they became blurs of motion. The swarm, for the first time since their return, began to retreat. In orbit, Miller watched the enemy ships flee. The knowledge flowing through his mind told him this was just the beginning. "Status report," he ordered. "Preston colony secured," Drake responded. "No civilian casualties. Enemy forces eliminated or retreated. And sir, the Commonwealth fleet just arrived." The alien warships, arriving too late to help, watched in stunned silence as human vessels, half their size, moved with deadly grace, their improvised weapons still glowing hot from battle. "Should we power down weapons?" Thompson asked. Miller looked at his crew, seeing the same golden fire in their eyes that burned in his own. "No," he decided. "They need to understand what we are now, what we've always been." A message came in from Admiral Ward. All human ships, be advised. Awakening has reached 50% across the species. Phase 2 is beginning. As if in response, Miller felt new knowledge flooding his mind, new powers awakening in his cells, new memories of weapons and tactics that could destroy worlds. The gods of war were no longer just awakening. They were ready to hunt. The Star Wanderer hung in space, its hull now transformed into something that barely resembled a ship. Living metal, remembered from humanity's ancient past, covered its surface. The crews stood at their stations, their eyes blazing like miniature suns, power rolling off them in waves that even alien sensors could detect. Dr. Wells' voice echoed through the ship, awakening at 90%. Our final form is emerging. Miller watched as his skin rippled, ancient armor growing directly from his cells. Every human on board underwent the same change. Their bodies remembered what they truly were, living weapons created to fight the swarm. Incoming transmission from Earth, Drake announced, his voice resonating with newfound power. Admiral Ward is addressing all human forces. The Admiral's image appeared on screen, his form also transformed. The ancient archives are fully decoded, he announced. Now we know the truth. We weren't imprisoned because we were too violent. We were imprisoned because we were too powerful to be left awakened. The truth hit everyone at once. Images flowed through their shared consciousness. Memories of ancient battles where single human warriors took down entire fleets. Memories of powers that could reshape planets. Massive swarm fleet detected, Thompson reported. 10,000 ships approaching Earth. They remember us. They fear us. Miller nodded, feeling the full power of his awakened form. All hands, prepare for total war. The Star Wanderer moved to join the gathered human fleet. Every ship had transformed like theirs, their crews fully awakened. Gone were the simple traders and diplomats. In their place stood the most powerful warrior race the galaxy had ever known. Battle state engaged, Miller commanded. The effect was immediate and devastating. Space itself seemed to bend around the human fleet. The living metal of their ships responded to their thoughts. Weapons materialized from pure energy, drawing on power that humanity's ancestors had sealed away eons ago. The swarm attacked first, their biological ships filling space with deadly energy. But humanity had changed. Miller watched as his crew casually twisted reality, letting the attacks pass through holes in space-time that they created with a thought. Return fire, Miller ordered. Show them what gods can do. The human fleet responded as one. Ships moved in impossible patterns, their weapons firing streams of golden energy that cut through swarm vessels like paper. Some human warriors simply stood on their ships' hulls, protected by their living armor, and threw energy bolts with their hands. Below, on Earth's surface, humans took to the sky under their own power. The genetic locks were completely gone now. Everyone remembered what they were meant to be. Sir, Drake called out, the Commonwealth fleet is requesting permission to assist. Miller looked at the alien ships hanging back, their crews watching in awe and fear as humanity demonstrated their true power. Tell them to stay back. They wouldn't survive what we're about to do. The Star Wanderer's crew linked minds with every human in the fleet. Miller felt the connection, the pure power of millions of awakened warriors flowing through him. Together, they reached for their most devastating ability. Reality anchor points locked, Thompson announced. The space fold is ready. Miller gave the command. Execute. Space folded around the swarm fleet. Reality itself bent to humanity's will. In an instant, half of the enemy ships found themselves crushed into quantum singularities. The other half faced the full fury of humanity's awakened arsenal. The battle lasted minutes. When it ended, the swarm fleet was gone. Earth hung untouched in space, protected by its children who had finally remembered their true nature. Dr. Wells' final report came through. Awakening complete. 100% of our abilities are restored. Miller stood on his bridge, golden energy crackling around him, and looked at his transformed crew. They were no longer simply human. They were what humanity had always been meant to be, gods of war, protectors of reality, wielders of power that most species couldn't even comprehend. A message flashed from Admiral Ward. To all human forces, Phase 3 is authorized. It's time to take the fight to the swarm's home territory. Miller smiled, the expression both beautiful and terrifying. Plot a course to the galactic core. We're going hunting. The gods of war were fully awake, and the galaxy trembled. The journey to the galactic core revealed a problem no one had expected. Miller stood in the Star Wanderer's conference room, facing a screen split between Admiral Ward and Dr. Wells. The issue wasn't their power. It was how some humans had chosen to use it. 3 colonies have declared themselves independent kingdoms, Ward reported, his golden eyes troubled. Some of our people think we should rule the galaxy, not protect it. On another screen, news footage showed human warriors using their powers to demand tributes from alien worlds. These rogue elements have forgotten their true purpose, drunk on their newfound abilities. Power reveals what we truly are, Miller said, watching the reports. The question is, what are we choosing to be? The Star Wanderer shook slightly as they traveled through folded space. Outside the windows, reality bent around them, creating shortcuts through the universe that only awakened humans could navigate. Captain, Drake called over the intercom. We have a situation at Colony 7. Humans there are demanding the alien residents swear loyalty to them or leave. Miller felt the weight of choice heavy on his shoulders. Their ancestors hadn't been imprisoned because they were too powerful. They had chosen imprisonment because they feared what power might do to them. Dr. Wells appeared on the bridge, her armor shifting colors with her concern. The awakening affected our bodies and minds, but not our hearts. That part remains purely human. All stop, Miller ordered. The Star Wanderer emerged from folded space near Colony 7. Below them, a group of awakened humans stood in the colony's main square, golden energy crackling around them as they terrorized alien families. Should I prepare the weapon systems? Thompson asked. No, Miller replied. I'll handle this personally. He stepped into empty air, his armor adapting instantly to space. He flew down to the colony's surface, landing between the rogue humans and their victims. Their leader, a former dock worker named Harris, turned to face him. Why protect them? Harris demanded, power flaring around him. We're gods now. We should rule. Miller's response was calm, but carried across the entire colony. We were never meant to be gods. We were meant to be guardians. The fight that followed wasn't like their battle with the swarm. This was precise, controlled. Miller moved with careful restraint, neutralizing Harris and his followers without causing damage to the colony. He could have destroyed them with a thought. Instead, he showed them what true power looked like. Back on the Star Wanderer, Admiral Ward sent a priority message. The Commonwealth Council is meeting. They're afraid of us now. Some are suggesting they should find a way to lock us away again. Dr. Wells' scans flashed on another screen. The power isn't corrupting us, but it is testing us. Every human must choose. Become the monsters we were feared to be, or become the protectors we were meant to be. Miller gathered his crew, all of them now aware of the crisis facing their species. The swarm is still coming, he reminded them. But our greatest battle isn't with them. It's with ourselves. Across human space, similar scenes played out. Those who chose to protect faced those who chose to dominate. The awakened powers made the stakes higher, but the choice remained purely human. Admiral Ward's next transmission brought more urgent news. The swarm has accelerated their advance. They're attacking the core worlds now. We need to decide who we are before we face them. Miller looked at his crew, seeing the same determination in their golden eyes that he felt in his heart. Send word to all human ships and colonies, he ordered. It's time to remember why we were given these powers in the first place. The Star Wanderer turned toward the galactic core, where the largest swarm fleet ever seen was gathering. But this time, they carried more than just weapons and power. They carried the weight of choice. Set course for the core, Miller commanded. It's time to show the galaxy what humanity truly chooses to be. The gods of war had awakened, but the heart of humanity would decide how to use their power. The galactic core blazed with light as two massive forces prepared for the final battle. On one side, the largest swarm fleet ever recorded, 100,000 living ships that blocked out the stars. On the other, the united human fleet, every awakened warrior ready for what would come. The Star Wanderer hung at the front of the human formation. Miller stood on the bridge, his golden eyes scanning the enemy fleet. Behind him, Dr. Wells monitored the crew's power levels. "All human ships report ready," Drake announced. "Even the ones who wanted to rule have joined us. They've made their choice." Miller nodded, feeling the combined strength of humanity flow through their shared connection. "Send the message to all ships. Today we prove why we were given these powers." The swarm attacked first, their bioships releasing clouds of dark energy that could eat through normal matter. But humanity had faced this before, in battles so ancient they were coded into their DNA. "Now," Miller commanded, "show them what Guardians can do." The human fleet moved as one. Ships phased through space, their crews wielding powers that bent reality. But this time, they fought with purpose, not pride. Every move was calculated to protect, not destroy. "Commonwealth fleet approaching," Thompson reported. "They're offering to help." Miller smiled. "Accept their aid. Show them they need not fear us." The battle that followed would be told in stories for generations. Human warriors flew through space, their living armor glowing like stars. They created shields of pure energy to protect alien ships. They opened paths through reality so their allies could strike at the swarm's weak points. "The swarm is adapting," Drake warned. "They're targeting civilian worlds beyond the battlefield." Miller felt a deeper power stir within him, not the destructive force of a god of war, but the protective instinct of a guardian. "All ships, initiate final protocol." Every human in the fleet understood. This was what their ancestors had planned for, why they had accepted imprisonment until they were needed. Together, they reached out with their powers, not to destroy, but to change. "Reality anchors locked," Thompson announced. "The pattern is forming." Around the swarm fleet, space itself began to transform. Humans weren't just fighting. They were rewriting the laws of physics in that region of space. The swarm's weapons stopped working. Their ship's biological adaptations failed. Dr. Wells' voice carried across all channels. "Power synchronization at maximum. We can end this, not with destruction, but with change." Miller gave the final command. "Execute Pattern Omega. Show them what humanity truly is." Golden energy flowed from every human ship, every awakened warrior. It wrapped around the swarm fleet like a cocoon of light. Inside that cocoon, the laws of reality shifted, changing the very nature of the swarm's existence. When the light faded, the swarm ships hung motionless in space. Their drive for destruction had been rewritten. The threat they had posed for countless millennia was gone. Admiral Ward's message reached all ships. "The swarm's consciousness has been altered. They're no longer destroyers. We didn't beat them. We changed them." The Commonwealth fleet watched in awe as human ships began helping the transformed swarm vessels. Where there had been war, now there was healing. Miller gathered his crew one last time. "Our ancestors weren't just warriors," he explained. "They were guardians who could reshape reality itself. They chose to sleep until they were needed, not because they were dangerous, but because such power should only be used when necessary." Across human space, people began to power down, their golden eyes returning to normal. They maintained their abilities but chose to keep them dormant unless needed. The gods of war became guardians of peace. 2 months later, Miller stood in the Commonwealth Council chamber. The Star Wanderer was a trading ship again, though its crew would never forget what they truly were. "Humanity has made its choice," he told the assembled aliens. "We choose to be guardians, not rulers. We will teach you to protect yourselves, and we will watch over the galaxy. Not as gods, but as protectors. The age of the gods of war had ended. The age of the guardians had begun. And if the galaxy ever needed them again, humanity would remember. They would awaken. They would protect. Because that was what they had always chosen to be.